we're going to continue to track. I'm not sure. Last time I checked, they were down by 5. So Cats
it's early
hanging on. It's early. And we've got Chris Arnold, who is in Salt Lake City with the KU Jayhawks. And he joins us live now from Salt Lake City. How's it going out there, Chris?
Well, guys, I can tell you it's a little chilly here today, but I've actually gotten some time to actually see some of the sights here today, which has been a lot of fun. Ran into some Jayhawk fans. I was down in Temple Square, just down yonder from the stadium here. It's been pretty cool, man. I mean, I have to tell you, I've never been to Salt Lake City, and this is a really underrated city. So if you've never been, you probably need to come out here and check it out.
You might be an underrated team this year. Why did they look so good yesterday versus a team that probably didn't look this good all year?
Well, you know, I think the thing that was the turning point for the Jayhawks yesterday was they just played better all the way around, offense and defense. I mean, you had the always steady Dedrick Lawson. I mean, he put up another double-double. He had 25 points and 11 boards. He had 16 of those points in the first half, but you just can't do it with one guy. So, I mean, they had Devon Dotson. He had 18. Ochai Agbaji had 13. The most underrated person in that game yesterday was the little brother Lawson, the other part of the Lawson law firm, if you want to call it that. KJ Lawson, the redshirt sophomore. He came off the bench with 13 points. He logged 23 minutes. I mean, he didn't play this much at all in the Big 12 tournament. He really came in yesterday, gave them a little bit of a spark off the bench when they sat some of their starters. The other thing was that just Northeastern shot absolutely terrible. They depend on shooters. Their game is perimeter oriented. I think they play 4 guards. One of the guys they had actually played in Wichita, Vasa Pushisha, I think is how you pronounce it, from Serbia. He played his senior year at Wichita Sunrise Christian Academy. But, I mean, he shot, I think, 2 for 13 yesterday. And overall, they shot 28%, 21% from the three-point line. So it's just a mixed bag of what helped KU out. They played better. They played a team that just wasn't on their A game. But you have to imagine this gives them a lot of confidence going into that game against Auburn tomorrow.
Talk about that game against Auburn. You got Bill Self, you got Bruce Pearl, you got a lot of theatrics. What's your take on Auburn? I mean, they're there. You got a chance to kind of check them out a little bit. How do they match up with the Jayhawks, Chris?
Well, I think the guard situation is kind of interesting with Harper on Auburn and Dotson on KU. I heard someone talking about they think those are probably the 2 fastest guards in all of NCAA basketball, so it'll be fun to watch them push it up the floor. Matchup-wise, you got to wonder. I mean, obviously KU getting a 34-point win, they're sitting on cloud 9 right now, but Auburn almost blew it against New Mexico State about 3 or 4 times in that game toward the end. They let Mexico State get wide open threes. They had a wide open 3 to almost win the game. I mean, Bruce Pearl looked like he was about to blow his lid at the end of that game, but I think it's actually a pretty good matchup. It's kind of hard to tell because SEC teams, the competition, I mean, I went to an SEC school. It's kind of watered down in my mind. I think the Big 12 has better competition than the SEC. So I think KU could steal it, but KU has to play like they did yesterday if they're going to win that game. If they play like they did against, you know, some of these lower tier teams during the year, maybe like when they played against Texas and lost by 10 points, they're not going to get out of that gym with a W.
Well, listen, man, I actually want to change the subject a little bit. Obviously, Auburn makes the tournament this year. They didn't make it last year. Can you just share the story that we saw with Bruce Pearl last year in San Antonio?
Yeah, no, oh man, that was funny. Down in San Antonio for the Final Four, it was John Aceves, myself, and 2 of our old employees out there for the Final Four. And Bruce Pearl, we see him walking by. Of course, we give him a wave because, you know, why not if you see famous people there. And then he goes up to security, and I don't think they believed he was really Bruce Pearl. I don't know how many other people might look like Bruce Pearl in the world. He was wearing, I don't know, John, you might be able to correct me. I thought he was wearing like an orange jacket. I don't know. I mean, if that's not a dead giveaway that he was part of the Auburn Tigers with orange or blue on, I don't know what. But it took him about 30 minutes to get into the Final Four last year to watch the game, and we got a big kick out of that because, I mean, it should have taken him 30 seconds to get through security.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, I'm looking at, we're talking to people here online. Of course, Raul, we all know Raul. He's chimed in a little bit. So he agrees with you, Chris, that KU needs to bring it. Phil White, I don't know if Phil White is still watching, but he was, which is odd to me because Phil's a diehard K-State guy. So I don't know, maybe he's watching this and he's watching the K-State game play out right now, which we are keeping track of. I'm supposed to get an update here.
Down by 2.
Down by 2. How much time is left?
2 minutes in the second half.
Does that surprise you, Chris? I know Kendra, which, by the way, we should say happy birthday to Kendra. Kendra's birthday today. She's covering the Cats in San Jose. Does that surprise you that K-State struggled in this game, Chris?
I mean, yes and no. I would guess the reason it doesn't surprise me a little bit is because going into this game, K-State talked so much about the anteater size and the way they could protect the rim and the way they can defend the post. So I'm imagining, I haven't really gotten to see much of this game. I saw the beginning of it, but I imagine that KU's just had trouble getting points up near the basket, and I mean, then that means you have to stretch and, you know, rely on your perimeter game a little bit more. But I know, like you guys said, it was a 2-point game. I'm looking at it now, 66-64 with 1:11 left. It does surprise me a little bit, though, because K-State is just the better team. They play better competition. UC Irvine came into this game winning 16 in a row. I went back and looked to see who some of the opponents they beat were, and you had like Cal State Fullerton, you had UC Riverside, UC Davis. I mean, these are teams that, I mean, are rollover teams if you're anybody else. So that surprises me a little bit that UC Irvine's able to hang with Kansas State, a team that just won to share the Big 12 title, has played better teams. And, I mean, yeah, this is coming down to the wire, 41 seconds left, and they're still up, too. I'm looking at the box score. I mean, besides Mike McGurl, they've only gotten 2 other points on the bench, so 9 points off the bench today. That doesn't help, especially when you're down Dean Wade. And, I mean, that's probably, if they end up losing this game, everyone will circle back to what if they had Dean Wade. Even Dean Wade at 50% would help this team probably get over the hump against UC Irvine.
The big story playing out right now, Chris, is Virginia, the top seed, struggling with Gardner-Webb. So we're trying to get you got an update on that for me, John?
They're down 6 to Gardner-Webb at halftime. I mean, we'll obviously get a live update about K-State, but what is it about this Virginia team that gets down to these 16 seeds?
Wow, I mean, I tried to tell everybody when they were filling out their brackets, they're like, Virginia's going to the Final Four, Virginia's going to the Elite Eight. Virginia never goes past the second round. Write that down, so next year when you fill out your bracket, do not pick them to go past the second round. I've made that mistake plenty of times. I made it last year. I picked them to go to the Sweet 16. UMBC comes in and beats them by 1 billion points. I mean, it wasn't 1 billion, but it was a lot. And here they are again. They're down 6 to Gardner-Webb. Gardner-Webb has never made the NCAA tournament. This is the first time they've been there. This is an embarrassment for Virginia. I don't know what their problem is when they get into the tournament. They can't do it. I'm looking at the box score. They're shooting 50%. I mean, if you're shooting 50%, you're a number 1 seed. You should be blowing away the other team. The only problem is that Gardner-Webb is shooting 54%. So this game should be interesting. The only thing I will say is that I have seen a couple times before UMBC obviously became the first 16 seed to win, where some of these 16 seeds would show up in the first half. They would be, up a couple points or down a couple points, and then the 1 seed comes out and it's like, oh, okay, we're not going to lose. We don't be on the wrong side of history. Well, Virginia's already been on the wrong side of history. I got to imagine that locker room right now, they're saying we do not want to be on the wrong side of history again. I believe that's Bennett, the coach out there. Yeah, you got to imagine he's giving them an earful right now, saying you guys got to pick it up.
Virginia is going to still win this game, and but it may not matter much because Oklahoma looked like world beaters today. Oklahoma looked really good in their victory against Ole Miss, 95-72, the final there. So
sorry, Chris.
Yeah, I felt bad too. Chris is an Ole Miss guy, and that was a little bit surprising to me. It's not looking good for K-State. 8 seconds to go. They're down by 4.
Oh my goodness.
It looks as if the Wildcats possibly getting bounced out of the first round this year, which is surprising to me because I've loved this team all year. In fact, I thought this K-State team, Chris, was tournament ready, tournament built. You had a lot of guys coming back from last year. They made a hell of a run. Even dealing with injury issues, Dean Wade being one of them. So I hate to see that for the Big 12 champions getting bounced in the first round, if it happens. They got 8 seconds, but it doesn't look good.
This is rough. I think it's stretched to 6 now. I mean, like you were saying, Jeff, I mean, you've talked highly about this team. I've talked highly about this team. I mean, when you got a core group coming back like that, like they had last year that made that Elite Eight run, you would think they were just, like you said, built to make another run. Even without Dean Wade, they made that run last year without him, minus, a cup of coffee in the Loyola game where he was in for like the first half. I mean, it's upsetting to see this. I mean, you look at the box score, and I guess the glaring stat is Barry Brown's only got 5 points, and that's the leader of that team right now. He had to show up. I mean, Kamau's had a good game with 18. May Weens had a double-double with 14, but outside of that, it's just they haven't had the production that they need. And again, going up against a team that has some size in the post, they have some 7-footers down there. That just, I guess, it made it a little harder to bang around in there for everybody except for Mayween there.
Well, that hurt my bracket.
They gone. K-State bounced. They done.
I had them in the Sweet 16 too.
Yeah, a lot of people had K-State going pretty far. Chris, let me ask you this. Some of your big surprises yesterday. The biggest disappointment and surprise that I had was New Mexico State. I was all over this New Mexico State team. I thought they were going to make a deep run, and here they lose in dramatic fashion yesterday. Our boy Chris Jans, former assistant at Wichita State, had a lot to do with Greg Marshall's successor. Coach Marshall will tell you, Jans is the man, and he had a great season, won 30 games in his second season out there with New Mexico State. They won their conference. They won the conference tournament. I thought they were going to take care of business, but then missing a couple of throws down the stretch cost them that game. To me, that was the biggest surprise yesterday. What stuck out for you?
I mean, that's up there just because of just how that game ended. I mean, Auburn basically said, here, you want to win the game, go for it. And, I mean, New Mexico State hits a couple threes down the stretch. That getting fouled on the three, that whole play at the end, we're all watching that, and we're wondering why they didn't take the layup that seemed to be open right there. But, instead, they go for the three, which is just interesting, and the guy gets fouled and obviously misses. Yeah, 2 out of 3 free throws. It was just interesting how that all played out. I do think that is one of the bigger surprises because I think New Mexico State is a better team than Auburn. I mean, Chris Jans has done a wonderful job there. I mean, they show out in the regular season. They prove that they were a good team. They just couldn't get it done in the end. I guess the only other surprise to me, I was surprised Minnesota won with the younger Patino there over Louisville. I just didn't think that Minnesota was that good. I mean, as a 10 seed versus 7 seed, those are one of those closer ones, those 8-9 ones where they can just swing either way. But I didn't think Minnesota would take care of business there. So that was probably my other big surprise.